I'm Melissa Shanahan, and this is the Velocity Work Podcast, episode number 20. This podcast is for attorneys who are running their own firms. We explore tactics, tools, and stories related to pushing past simply lawyering well and into building a successful firm. Working in your firm and working on your business are two very different things. This podcast focuses on the latter. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Velocity Work Podcast. If you're listening to this when it's released, you are likely in the last week of work before things tend to slow down, shut down for the end of the year. And I wanted to provide you with an exercise that you could use sort of as a year-end review or reflective exercise that will help you take inventory of your year and maybe even before, prior to this last year, and also give thought to what you want to create in the next year. Normally, when I am offering up this kind of thing, especially when we're looking forward, I get really specific with people. I want them to set goals. I want them to set priorities or set rocks so that they can get to those goals, like reverse engineering, so to speak. And we're going to do that today in this exercise, but it's going to be a lot more general, a lot more high level, and less tactical, operational, less doing and more just being, like how you want to be moving forward. So bear with me, because if this all sounds airy-fairy, trust me, it's not, and it's very useful to think of things in this context. So I wanted to provide it to you today. My coach, when my birthday came around, which was August, my coach recommended this exercise, and I did it and loved it. I really dug into it too. Like, I took a couple of hours to really dig into this thought process and reflection, and it really unlocked something for me moving forward that I loved, because I've done a lot of sort of year in review kind of exercises. I've been in the coaching world for 10 plus years now. So I was surprised that how impactful this exercise was. And I thought that this is a really beautiful time to share it with you all so that you can maybe use it as at the turn of the year. Sometimes I look at my birthday as more of the new year for me than the actual calendar new year. It just feels like more of a reset button around my birthday. But I still appreciate a reflective exercise at the turn of the year, the calendar year, and I'm going to do this again, even though it won't need to be as in-depth because I've really gone back and looked at things already, but it's still going to be useful for me to think through it. And so I'll explain. Okay, this exercise is called your future self exercise. And what's interesting is that the whole idea is, what gifts do you want to give to your future self? Now, that may sound weird at first, but let me explain. Your past self, the self of yesterday and way beyond, did certain things that were really gifts that if you could like high five your past self, you totally would, because of where it got you, the doors that it opened, what it created for you in some way. And it's interesting to think backwards to those things. Like, what were those things that you want to say thank you to your past self for? Because I know for sure my current self takes total delight in looking back at some of those things. I'm proud of myself for certain things. And even in the moment, something didn't seem so meaningful, but it was a moment that is meaningful. As I look back, it changed the course of everything for me. I really appreciate looking back in that way and understanding that I've given myself opportunities. I've created my current reality. My past self did that. So now here we are, this current moment, this current day version of ourself. And when you think about what what your future self would want to high five your current self for, that is what I'm going to ask you to start thinking about. And there's a way that I will have you do this so it can make sense and you can start to let this unfold. Now, if this sounds cheesy, I want you to know that truthfully, it's fascinating, and I'll make this point again at some point in this podcast, I'm sure. All the gifts that my future self or that my past self has given me, that I'm experiencing the rewards of now, are not interesting. They aren't. A lot of times, it's not the shiny spots in our life. It's the boring stuff that we showed up for and we did, and not fun stuff that we showed up for and that we did, that gave us the results that we are getting to experience now. And so the beauty of this is really understanding what you need to do in order to deliver yourself to whatever your goals are, whatever you want to accomplish. And when I say accomplish, I mean that could mean a revenue goal in business. That could mean spending more time with your kids. That could mean just inner peace. Like, it doesn't have to look like something tangible you can point to or hold in your hand. It can be very abstract, but you want to create it for yourself. Well, anytime we want to make a change is never easy, but it's usually worth it. And that thing that makes it so that thing that makes it worth it, that hard work that you put in that makes it worth it, because you get a certain result, that is the stuff that inevitably tends to pop up as what's important. It's the boring, it is the routine, it is the delaying gratification. It is all, so we'll get more into it, but it's usually that kind of stuff that you want to high five yourself for doing because it allowed you to get where you got. So if we're going to back up a little bit, I will say this. I was encouraged that if it was hard for me to get rolling on this, to write a letter to my past self with wisdom and explanations and, all the things that you would want your past self to know. I didn't feel the need to do that once I really kind of looked at this exercise. I just ran with it and I did great. But if you feel like you need to kind of get into a groove with this, it can be really powerful. I've done this before in the past, to write a letter to your past self and just kind of be reflective and think through the wisdom and what you would offer. Now, the beauty of this is when you're done with this exercise, it allows you to create or write a letter to your current self from your future self, from the future version of you that has achieved the things that you want to achieve, whatever that looks like for you. So that can be a very interesting practice, and you'll be able to easily do that after you answer some of these questions, because it'll be very clear what you need to do, what you need to remember on this journey moving forward if you do want to reach these certain things that matter to you. A few other things that I'll share. Day to day, like after this exercise, you really want to think about your future self. You want to think about her or him. You want to gift her or him. And you can even think, because, a lot of the things we were talking about before, delayed gratification is not always fun. Doing the things that you don't feel like doing, but it will deliver the results that you want to do. You show up for them anyway. That stuff sometimes isn't fun, right? At all. But it gets you where you want to go, which is pretty cool. So you can even think, as you're not wanting to, you're lacing up your shoes, but you really don't want to be. You'd rather sit on the couch. You can think something like, future self, you better appreciate this because I don't feel like doing it right now, but I'm doing it. I'm doing it for you. And bring that into it, because it's funny. It really is like giving a gift to yourself every time you override the natural emotion that can come up that says, like, I don't feel like doing this right now. I don't want to do this right now. I'm tired. I'd rather stay in my cozy bed, whatever it is. I'd rather go have a snack. I'd rather go. It's like these little indulgent things that you can do instead of the thing that you are supposed to do. That's when it can be useful, is to override that and just say, all right, future self, I'm doing this for you. Dang it. So the other thing Something I think a lot since I've done this exercise is that how much my past self hooked me up. Hooked me up. I think about things that I've done in the past that I didn't want to do, I didn't feel like doing, they were scary to do, whatever. But I am where I am right now because of those things. And so it's fun to think about how much I've been hooked up by the Melissa of yesterday, the Melissa of 10 years ago, the things that I've done on this journey. And it's going to be no different for you if you kind of let yourself go there and think through some of these things. And here's something that really worked for me when I was thinking through this is, what if I think of my future self as more of a priority than the me in this moment? That was wild when I thought about that. And I want you to seriously stop and think about it. So if you're doing something else, that's totally fine, but stop and listen to this statement, because this is kind of what it boils down to for me. This is what I noticed. When I put my future self as the priority, when I decide that my future self is more of a priority than me in this moment, my actions and how I operate and how I show up line up to get me those results. Isn't that wild to think about? I mean, really stop and think about that. If you prioritized your future self, the you of 5 years from now, if you made her or him a priority, more of a priority than the you of today, what would that be like? How would you show up differently? What would you do? What gifts would you give yourself, your future self? It's pretty wild to think about. Here are a couple questions that I want you to be thinking through when you sit down to be reflective in this way. What are the gifts that you are receiving right now from your past self? What do you want to thank her or him for? What do you want to be gracious to yourself for? It's interesting to think back, and I'll give you some examples of things that came to mind for me in just a moment. What do you want to give as a gift to your future self? And really think that through, like what comes to mind. And if you're not really sure, like just do your best with ideas. Just play around with it, see what happens. Now, here's something else with my future self that was interesting for me to ask. How am I currently trashing my future self? How am I creating problems or issues for my future self? The best gifts that you have to give your future self, they're usually super dull and boring right now. Like being responsible with your health, that's not fun. Like there's nothing fun about or exciting about that. It's the routine and the constant showing up. Flossing your teeth, for example. That'll save you a world of trouble if you're flossing correctly and using a good floss, by the way. Eating well. Taking care of your body, moving your body, getting checkups. In terms of, so that's with health, but there's applying a lot of constraint in your life tends to produce really results much more quickly than not, because you're not all over the place. You're focusing in, you're constraining on working towards just a few things. That can go a long way, but that's not fun. It's so much easier to indulge in like all of it and kind of be spread out all over the place and not be super focused. Delaying financial gain, not burning yourself out. So it's like the not fun things, the routine things that you do, that's what delivers results that your future self is wanting, most likely. So that's a hint when you're thinking about the gifts you want to give your future self. It's not going to be something radical. It's just not. It's probably going to be boring and seem mundane, and it's going to sound super easy, but to actually show up for it is like, that's where as humans we tend to just default and not show up like we said we were going to. I looked back, like when I was trying to figure out, okay, what gifts has my past self given myself? Like, what have I given to myself in the past that I'm super stoked about, that I want to high five myself for? Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to ask the question, what do I want to thank past Melissa, former Melissa for? I went back, and you guys don't have to do this if you don't want to, but it was just, I was in a really deep place, and I had the space for it. I had carved out the space for it for around my birthday. I went all the way back through when I was younger. And I didn't go to elementary school, but I definitely did think back to like junior high when I started like actually having control over some of my decisions, or at least having awareness that I had control over my decisions and how I acted and all of that and the things that I went for. And I chunked up my past into phases that made sense for me. So I did through junior high school. I did a high school chunk. I did a college chunk. And then from there, it was really broken up by city. I have lived in several cities post-college. So I've lived in Atlanta, LA, Chicago, San Francisco, and now Denver. And that's all separate from where I grew up, which was Indiana. And so I've thought a lot. That's kind of how I broke my life up, was like, okay, the Atlanta chapter, the LA chapter, the Chicago chapter, San Francisco chapter, and now Denver chapter. And what is fascinating as I went back to look, like when I really listed out all the things that I wanted to thank myself for, there were lots of stuff. But what I noticed, there were two types of things that I wanted to thank myself for. I didn't know this when I was making my list. I literally just wrote a list out. I didn't filter. I didn't judge. I just wrote down like a bulleted list of all the things I was really grateful for having done and having accomplished in each phase of my life. After I did that, so I did that for each phase that I just told you about, junior high, high school, college, each city sort of as a chapter, made a list, a bulleted list of all the things I'm really just grateful for and proud of that I did, that I either realized or accomplished or whatever, right? Then I went back and circled the biggies, like the ones that felt like turning points in my life. I may not have known it at the time, but looking back, it's very clear. What shifted my trajectory? What were things that they were, when looking at it, it was really kind of a point of inception. And so I went back and circled all of these, and the ones that stood out that really felt more meaningful. And then as I was studying the ones that were circled, the ones that felt more impactful, I noticed that there were two kinds of gifts that I gave myself that I was really grateful for. One, which there was a flood of, there's more of, it's been very easy for me to do in my entire life, is the feel the fear and do it anyway kind of stuff. The like just following my joy or trying to follow my nose or follow my intuition. No matter how scary, just go for it. That's one type. The other type was when I exercised discipline and delayed gratification. And I noticed that, there are things that they were just patterns that I was picking up on that I want you to do for yourself when you're looking at your lists. For instance, one thing that I have done consistently, and it's just been my nature, that's something that I feel like is a real gift that I don't think I can take credit for it. It's just been part of my nature, is going all in on things with a warm smile and kind eyes. That has been a theme for me, and I have done that time and time again, and it has paid off so much. It has provided so many beautiful opportunities and experiences, and I've been riding on those. And that's just an innate gift. For some of you, you're going to have innate gifts that maybe you'll be able to point to that it's hard to take credit for because it just feels like it's always been there, always, 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 but that's unique to you. Well, I started to ask myself, because there weren't very many with the discipline and the delayed gratification kind of work, gifts that I gave myself. I have some for sure, but there's not as nearly as many as the kinds of gifts where I've just felt the fear and do it anyway. But the gifts where I did practice discipline and delayed gratification the results were so much deeper and more meaningful and got me so much further. I mean, it's like a gift on steroids when you give yourself a gift of discipline and delayed gratification. So I asked myself, I wonder what it could look like if I focus more on discipline and delayed gratification from here on. I know because it's so easy for me. I'll keep feeling the fear and doing it anyway. Like those kinds of moves in life aren't hard for me. I don't know why, they just aren't. And I've certainly practiced them over the years, so they get easier and easier just to like leap and the net will appear and just make it work, make it happen, right? I can do those without trying hard or focusing really hard. That's the easy part. But what isn't easy is doing more of the discipline and the delayed gratification, like having those kinds of deliberate gifts for myself. So I'm hopeful that this kind of gives you a way to look at all the accomplishments and all the gifts that your past self has given your current self. If you can sort of separate out for you, what do you lean towards? Are the gifts because of discipline mostly, or are they mostly because you felt the fear and you just go for it? I think that whatever we lean towards, whatever our tendency is, it could be really fascinating to try to line up with the thing that we aren't really good at. If I looked back and I was just full of discipline and like constraint and delayed gratification, then I probably would want to exercise that part of me that needs to just feel the fear and do it anyway. That kind of work, those kinds of gifts. And so I'm curious for you, and I think that you should be really curious about yourself. What happens more for you? And then try to sort of shift things in a way, like how can you really show up for yourself to exercise that part of you that isn't so practiced? It can be a pretty juicy way to think about the future. And then everything that I wanted to do moving forward that I wrote down in my notebook, 10 years from now, what are the gifts I want to give to my future self? Well, okay, first I had to think about what I wanted for my future self. In 10 years from now, I'll be 49 and I want a certain net worth. I want to be strong and fit. I want to be relaxed. I want to feel proud. I want to be providing lots of opportunities for others. I want to be a strong example for my kids. I want a business that I love, and I want a team that I love. I want my husband and I to be working together in some capacity. I want to regularly spend time with loved ones, like not just let's try to make it happen on a Friday night, but like deliberately take trips with people that I love the most and really connect with my girlfriends or with other couples, whatever, but just really spend valuable time, quality time with people who mean the most in my life. When I think about what gifts I need to give to my future self, like what gifts do I need to give to my future self right now? What do I need to do right now that lines me up with that kind of a life in 10 years? And all of it for me came back to I need to plan my time and honor my plans. And I'm a big believer that whatever is your calendar, if it's not on your calendar, it's probably not going to happen. If you aren't making time for it and carving out time for it, it's probably going to get pushed to the side more than you would prefer. So planning your time and honoring your plans and having a dedicated morning routine, like time carved out for that, even if it's quick, but like I have a morning routine, something that I do that helps kind of turn me on or get me in my best spot for the day, for my life, for my people that I love, and for the work that I do. Being active, putting that in my calendar, and it doesn't have to be long, but just the consistency, right? The consistency is what needs to be there. So then I was like, okay, well, if that's what I need to, those are the gifts I need to give myself, is just to like be consistent with that stuff, be disciplined and show up. Then what are the things I need to calendar? What kinds of things do I need to put in the calendar that will deliver me to those kinds of results? And so I put Power Hour every Sunday. I sit down and I look at my week ahead. Sometimes it's Monday morning, but I don't not do it, right? So the Power Hour in my calendar. Then, so that's looking at work, but it's also looking at my personal life. I just look at the week ahead and try to prep and make sure that all the priorities are there, that I have space carved out for the things that I need to do. It's in there, so I have time to do it. I also have a little bit of space carved out every morning just to sort of push the reset button before I hit the day. I have longer planning, sort of like blocked time on my calendar every so often strategically to be able to look at the next quarter or the next 2 quarters to make sure the priorities that I have marked on my calendar, they're lining up intentionally. And then also revisiting time on the calendar to revisit this future gifts exercise, to look at the gifts that my past self has given to my current self, maybe monthly or quarterly. And what am I going to gift, my short-term gifts am I going to give to my future self? So, in order for all this to work, there's certain things I need to do, and I know that, but truthfully, more than anything else, it's about showing up and doing what I say I'm going to do. That's it. And so how can I support myself? How can my current self do that in a way that really provides for my future self? How can I make sure, because I'm certainly not going to feel like doing it in the moment. I'm just not. There's going to be times where something pops up on my calendar and I'll be like, oh my God, all of a sudden I'm just hungry. I need a snack. I'm thirsty. I need to go to the bathroom. I need to deal with X, Y, and Z instead of doing the thing that I'm supposed to be doing. And that is where the work is. That is the hard part, is overriding the urge to do something other than what is the best thing for my future self. So this goes back at the beginning. We talked about, what if you make your future self more of a priority than your current self? What would that look like? It's pretty wild to think about. And again, to touch on, the gifts that you give yourself, a lot of times they're boring, they're dull, but that is the stuff that makes your dreams come true. Giving into urges and indulges and being sort of indulging in the moment for something. Not that there's not a time and a place for that. You don't need to have every bit of your calendar packed out. There should be room for free time, 100%. But when you're planning and you want to show up for your priorities, you just have to do it, no matter what you feel like. When you give in to when you don't delay gratification, and when you give in to the urges and you're indulgent in the moment, that is the thing that takes away, that's when you remove, like, you're not giving your future self any gifts. You are just honoring sort of the current moment, the current emotion, and there's really no gain from that. So I hope this is helpful to sit down and think about. Essentially, if we recap, you want to sit down and ask yourself, what are the gifts that your past self has given your current self? Go back as far as you want. You can just make a bulleted list, or you can free flow write. However you want to do this is fine. And once you create a really good list, I want you to circle the ones that are the most meaningful. And then I want you to look for patterns. What do you tend to, like, the gifts that you give yourself? Is it delayed gratification kind? Is it the discipline kind, where you've had a lot of constraint and focus and you showed up every day and you were steadfast on the path towards getting a specific result? Or was it more of the feel the fear and do it anyway kind of stuff? And whatever you lean towards, maybe think about exercising that other side as you move forward. The other thing is, ask yourself, how are you trashing your future self? How are you basically flipping off your future self, being like, I don't feel like it. I'm just going to do what I want to do right now. So ask yourself that. And then ask, like, what gifts do you want to give your future self? And for me, to answer that, I really had to think about that, like, vision that I wanted to hold 10 years from now. And that's the things I read you before. And a lot of it's not super specific. It's just a certain feeling state that I know I want to feel. And so when I think backwards from that, well, how I feel proud is by showing up and by doing what I'm supposed to be doing, even when I don't feel like it, because it's super fun to be on the other side of all that hard work. So think through it for yourself. Take your time. And I think a lot of people don't love resolutions, which I totally get that. This is sort of an alternative. It's not necessarily resolutions. It's just identifying what gifts you want to give and how you want that to look as you move forward. And I'll tell you, I haven't been perfect with this since my birthday, but my level of awareness is such that it prevents me from slipping back as far as I have in the past. And it keeps me focused and on track. Even like every week I have a new chance with my power hour. I have a chance to sort of refocus, and I have accomplished more, and I've practiced more discipline this second half of 2019 than I ever have before. And I have been practicing discipline pretty well the last couple years with all that I've been balancing. But it is really amped up since I've thought about my future self as more of a priority than my current self. And so I hope that you can start to see and have some clarity for your life in this way as well. All right, everyone, have a beautiful holiday. We're going to take off the week of Christmas. So that Tuesday, you won't see an episode from us, but you will the following week after that. And we'll kick off the new year with some pretty exciting things. Stay tuned for an announcement with that. Have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful rest of the year. Congratulations for making it to this year, to the end of the year. I'm sure you've accomplished so much. And I'm excited to see what you create in 2020, this new decade, a fresh start. I am so privileged and honored to be able to work with so many of you who are listening. And for all of you that I don't know personally, but that you are listening to this podcast, please know that I think about you all the time. I am your number one fan, and anything that I can do to support you, I'm all about it. Have a wonderful rest of the year, everyone. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Thanks so much for listening to the Velocity Work Podcast. If you've enjoyed this podcast and you run your own law firm, you have to come see if the Velocity Work client experience is for you. Head over to hello.velocitywork.com to set up a free call. We can learn more about one another, answer any questions we may have for one another, and determine if the Velocity Work client experience is a right fit. I hope to connect with you soon. Show notes from this episode can be found at velocitywork.com/podcast.